think all of my things are good. Perhaps I should check just to make certain. Let's have some insurance here. If you make me have to log into Restream again, I'm gonna be mad. Okay, looks like I won't be mad. Alright. Welcome, welcome. It has been but a moment, and it shall be for only a moment. I'm hoping to be able to have a little bit of a shorter episode this time around, so welcome to Draconian Discourse. I don't have to, like, roll every single D and R that I've got. But what's the intro for today? I've seen a couple of videos. So previously I responded to a video. One of them was a, what do you call it? I have a canker sore on my my lip that is just feeling real nice. Hate it. I responded to a video by Professor Neil, and I responded to a little comic by AZ Hero, who has now rebranded. I guess he decided that calling himself a hero wasn't exactly the best look. Though I honestly don't know about what the what am I saying? Like, I don't know what the nomenclature was, but obviously I think it looks pretty pretentious to call yourself a hero and then you go on these true escapades. But before I get into that, because we will be looking at another Professor Neil and another AZ Hero today, who is rebranded, of course, to what is it, Horns on Angels or something like that, whatever it is, Horns on Halos. But I've responded to Professor Neil before. There are some people who I think have some really great egalitarian perspectives on I don't know what exactly would you call it, gender relations, you know, the war between the sexes. So some people who are pretty dang good at calling out men for bad behavior, and that is kind of what the last episode was about, was very much along the lines of, you know, what behavior is and or should be acceptable, and what isn't and should not be considered acceptable. Finding some good some good discussions along that topic. What I've, you know, there's this Australian guy, I don't exactly remember his name. He's just spot on with pretty much everything that he says in each of his videos. I could probably just like pick any single one of them at random and just say, like, look at this, you know, he just gets it, you know. So when he's calling out you know, uneducated or just what's the word, unsavory men for some of the nasty things they'll say, or the unfounded ridiculous things that they'll say, I'm pretty in support of that. So if I can remember what his name is, and I've got to log into this stupid Restream chat once again. It's obnoxious because then I have to, like, do a captcha every single time. I'd rather just be able to, like, scan a QR code, something. Price you pay for security. Just a bit obnoxious. Yeah, it's not just the captures are obnoxious. I think Restream is still the only thing that I know that that uses this stupid, like, old Google captcha where it's like, select all of the cars or whatever. So obnoxious. I don't want to select any motorcycles, man. I'm sick of this crap. And it always makes you do multiple of them. Please try again. Stop being obnoxious. It seriously makes you do it like 10 times. I think it's just like when I see something, the way that it like cuts it across just makes it be like, well, a human wouldn't make that decision. It's like, okay, I'm not exactly human, but I'm not a robot either. Goodness sake. Ridiculous. Anyhow, what's his name? Let me look up on Instagram real quick. One of the things I'm kind of wondering, Instagram real quick, but I wasn't really referring to Instagram Reels. This is stupid. They really need to figure out a thing with, like, if people can send you messages and stuff, then there should be something that Will Hitchens is his name, and that is his @ as well. He's this Aussie guy, and he just responds to a lot of people's stupid clips, videos, and whatnot. He's on point with all these kinds of things. I think there are a lot of people who think that, like, just because they're responding to somebody means that they are correct, and it's like, well, no, you actually have to respond with good criticisms, and I think in order to do that, you have to have an ideology that is actually based on correct principles, and I think Professor Neil is a good example of somebody who does not have those principles really in order. His ideology seems to just be women were like hurt, and that women still continue to be hurt by men, and therefore all men are bad and men and women aren't different at all. Like that's what it kind of seems to be, where a lot of the stuff that he says doesn't seem to be very well thought out, and that's just part of what I had done when I had responded to his video previously, is like, hey, men and women are different. Like, turns out that not all of them want to be working in coal mines, so there's no discrimination with that. It's just there's actually a statistical reality to the amount of jobs that to the jobs that women want to work, and to the amount of time that women want to dedicate to working. Turns out most women kind of prefer to be able to work, and then if they have kids, they prefer to take care of those kids, and they are perfectly willing to make that trade-off. And as long as you aren't like too I suppose crazy about one thing over the other, then you're gonna be able to have plenty of happiness with that lifestyle that you would like to promote. The way that his sort of line of thinking in that previous was sort of like, it seems just really white knighty, where it's just like women just have nothing, like women can't actually just uphold standards for themselves, and because there are like some certain statistical realities, it means that therefore someone's actually keeping them down. And it's like, well, no, if you actually knew anything about this, and you would know that that's not the case. So I do believe we're going to start with a Professor Neil one. One of these videos that I saw, one of these videos that I saw recently was that, I love hot dogs, by the way. I didn't mention the little meme of the day for today, but great image, fantastic image, beautiful. One of the videos I saw earlier was, basically there was a man who was saying, this is how you make a woman obsessed with you, and it's like, you could clearly tell that the way that the other man was responding to him was scripted. Obviously, it was done in a way that he knew what he was about to say. So clearly, like, he had seen the video already, which was perfectly fine. I script videos. I tend to do better when I script videos. I'm not quite as good as getting things just off the top of my head. Sometimes words are a bit difficult to find, and I tend to stutter a lot. And it's an easy way to organize yourself in a way that can mitigate some of your own flaws by being extra prepared when it comes to making a good case. And honestly, a lot of the time you are best equipped to make a good case, and you don't end up like just continually thinking about it when you have it scripted, which is why I've kind of wanted to be more on a bit of a more scripted segment for this show, because it does make it a little bit easier. But then at the same time, it's like, well, if I'm gonna be like stitching or whatever, then I could just respond to videos on TikTok or something like that, and it wouldn't have to take quite as long. But you know, obviously there'd be a certain amount of nonsense, I suppose, with the responding to. So it's nice to sort of have it be a little bit freeform. But regardless, in this video, this man very clearly cut part of a sentence and responded to, like he cut him off, and then he didn't actually stop playing the next part of the video. He cut him in the middle of a point and then stopped the point entirely because he was fixated on the wording or the direction that he was going, and it actually makes it very difficult for somebody who is employing critical thinking in that situation to be able to actually take that at face value, where it's like, well, wait a minute, he didn't actually finish his point, because I thought that maybe there were going to be some true things said in there, where basically something that he had said, it was something about him being sort of manipulative in the way that he was going about some of these things. He's like, well, admittedly, I'm a little bit manipulative. And it's like, okay, yeah, I was expecting that. And he starts talking, and he says something like, you don't compliment him, you shouldn't compliment her, girls don't want a nice guy. And he was supposedly going to go on, well, presumably going to go on and say what girls do want, but it was cut off where women, I don't know what the exact phrasing was, but he was saying the way that he was saying nice guy was clearly cut off, and it didn't actually continue on where he started, where he was. It didn't let him finish that thought. That thought was entirely cut out. The entire purpose of this sort of format, that Rags had been using for ages and continues to use occasionally when he actually makes videos, and then the sort of EFAP format is that, just commentary format. Rags didn't originate it. Many other people use it. It's just you play their video in context, you respond to a section of their video, and it's really linear. It's really easy to understand. It's pretty easy to make. It's simple. The entire purpose is so that you have the entire argument that somebody made in context, so you don't have to like jump around and dissect in a convoluted, confusing type of way. It's just straightforward. You have everything they said in context. If you need to rewind, you can rewind just a little bit. You can replay previous parts of the video to make sure that you actually understand what they're saying, and then you counter their speech with your speech in disagreement. It's a rebuttal. That is the entire purpose of the sort of play-by-play rebuttal. Play-by-play rebuttal, EFAP type of thing. When you cut out a certain amount of it, and there are people who have done this in a dishonest way, and there are people who I am suspicious of doing it in a dishonest way, because, wait a minute, I didn't actually catch the end of that sentence. Show me the original video in the context that it was, so I can actually see what points they make, because a lot of the time they'll intentionally edit their stitches in a way to take what was said in the video. They only put in the bad parts because they don't actually want to grant any amount of credit, any semblance of credibility to their opposition, because it harms their narrative. And if you're going in with nothing but a narrative, then you are going to you're going to harm your own movement. You are going to harm your own ideological sway to it. Saying, this is exactly the way that I think, and therefore this is why I think this person is wrong. Allow me to show you what this person is saying and what they think in context, so that you can, draw your own conclusion based off of my rebuttal to what they are saying. If you cut it out, then you are actually what you end up creating is something that only is you're preaching to the choir. You are not actually going to convince anybody by saying like that this is all that it is, and it's actually a really great way, such as with AZ Hero, to suck the nuance out of just completely out of a discussion. So without further ado, here is the video, and he looks kind of like Mark Wahlberg, this guy, which is interesting. Just a bit of a random what's the word, view, observation, that's what I was looking for. Goodness sake, I hate it when words just don't come. It's obnoxious.
There's 5 things a man wants in a woman.
Hit me with it.
Because this is one thing. You can certainly call this a nitpick because it doesn't actually get anything on the substance, but you gotta be snappy with this. Like, don't overstay your welcome. You know, you don't have to like give somebody a full, like I would have cut a little bit of that so that you only hear sort of the substance of it. You don't have to give people a ton of time to like monitor your appearance or your like it's just like, just say what you're gonna say and move on. So you know that obviously there's no like I don't know. Obviously I would have done it differently. It's like, okay, I'm about to hear you out. Let's see what you've got to say. So effectively what is being said is the exact same thing that I would be saying. It's just could just be a little bit snappier, and I would have probably been a little bit tonally different.
There's 5 things a man wants in a woman.
Not a big deal.
Hit me with it.
You want a lover. That's the physical.
Oh. Okay, see, because what I was wondering about this when I had initially seen it, because I think I had misheard, and I just didn't end up rewinding, because when you're on Instagram, it's difficult to rewind, especially on desktop, which is part of why I like actually downloading these if I'm going to discuss them. But it's like you have to wait for the entire video to loop, and that's just obnoxious. It's just like, let me rewind this. I could go on an entire tirade on how the differences between TikTok and Instagram and whatever with the way that people send messages to each other and having to go through those messages is just obnoxious. But either way, I had initially interpreted that as him saying what women want in a man, and but I still think either way, the way that Neil spins this is just biased. Like, it's just like you're not actually hearing him out. You are projecting an idea, your own perception of how, you know, people who talk about things like this on podcasts like behave or something like that. It's like that you're not actually utilizing critical thinking here. You are utilizing like a self-poisoning of the well, where you just don't want to actually hear what somebody has to say, no matter what they're actually going to say. You just don't really want to hear it. You're going to assume that there is some sort of misogyny going on, when actually if you got yourself out of the misogyny goggles, then you would see the world as it really was.
Sexual attraction.
All right, that's fine. No major objections here.
Indeed.
Not universally true, but generally true, yes.
See, the way that I initially said that, like, it's like all you had to say was, okay, no major objections here. Like, that's all you had to say. But it's like, not universally true, but generally true. It's just like, really? How many men on this earth, when it comes to human beings, do not have any amount of sexual attraction to other creatures in general? Well, I should say other human beings in general, be they male or female. How many men on this earth like just don't even care? They're like, you know, I could just go my entire life without having any sexual relationship with anybody, and I wouldn't have to get any sort of a sexual pleasure from anyone or anything. Like, I just don't feel anything sexual because my gonads were removed at birth or something. It's like the amount of people who actually think that way, especially males, because males, let's face it, are far more sexual creatures than females in this species, Homo sapiens. Like, the amount of men who don't want to have sex with anything, be they male or female, is just extremely low. Like find me a study on asexuality in male humans, that actually shows males that have literally no sexual tendencies whatsoever, that they just don't, they have no libido, and they really just, maybe have an orgasm in their entire life. Like, find me the male who does that. It's like, when somebody makes a statement, they are talking about the rule and not the exception. And it's one of those, like, frustratingly low IQ things, not to be, too judgmental about it, but it's like, it's one of those things that it's like, this, when I talk about the rule, I'm talking about the rule. You can assume that I'm not talking about the exception, because I'm talking about the rule. If you say, well, but what about the exception though? It's like, yeah, that's the exception. That's why I wasn't talking about the exception. I was talking about the rule. As a rule, men have sexual attraction. They have sexual needs, and those needs must be filled, on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, depending on the libido of the male. And that is something that obviously that they should be doing in a consensual manner with other consenting people who desire you got to get your rocks off, I got to get my rocks off, let's do it together, and we can both enjoy that type of idea. It's like, as a rule, that's the way that men function. Men, goodness sake, see this thing like lagging right in front of my eyes. Oh no, you left Pokemon Go up in the background, so now I'm like overheating. Like, chill out, maybe? Is this actually gonna like do its job properly? Okay, we are gonna kill it, because that is obnoxious. If I have to switch phones, I'm gonna be pissed. Boot up the stupid program, idiot. Like, how long, seriously, does it actually take for you to just... Wow. Like, you just hung on the program, not even having, like, booted it up for, like, an entire minute plus. Well, no, that wasn't a minute, obviously, but, like, still obnoxious. Don't do that. Don't just, like... What having like 4 gigs of RAM does to an MF. Apple sucks, by the way, if you didn't know. It's kind of insane that only they have this technology. Anyhow, when you state a rule, you're not talking about the exception. That is literally in the definition of stating a rule. As a rule, males are attracted to females. It's like, well, yeah, no major objections here. It's like, not universally true. Yes, but like, how ununiversal is that actual rule? Like, can you give me a little bit more to work on there? Because it's pretty universal of a rule. The amount of men who kind of see sex as a need is nearly every man. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, why is that something that needs to be said? Like, it's just silly. Anyhow,
You want the sister. That means somebody who you have the same interests. You want to go to basketball.
And then it got really weird really quick. I don't know why we couldn't call this a best friend energy instead.
yeah, because I think the way that I had interpreted initially was that it was the man saying that this is what the woman wants, and so I was taking it from that angle, where it's just like, why would you call it a sister? But I think I do understand now that the point that's being made is, this is what a man, a man has all of these needs, and the way that I'd see that is like initially I was like, well, if two males can have a tight like friendly bond of friendship together, then they can call each other brothers. But if two females do the same thing, they can't call each other sisters. I realize that, in the context of actually having needs, I don't think that men, it's weird to kind of say that all of these different needs are kind of separate when they're kind of all one and the same. Like the amount of men who need a sister, like who need like a bond with a female who is not who they are not romantically attracted to, I feel like a lot of men can be happy without that. And vice versa. I feel like a lot of women have a better time talking with other women because they speak the same language than talking with a ton of men. Because I've certainly seen it's like, a lot of the time, because you speak such disparate languages, males and females, then it's kind of like, well, I kind of only have room for the emotional stress of one male in my life, and for men it's just like, well, maybe just one woman's enough for me. I don't really necessarily have to be extremely emotionally tight with another woman. But to each their own. There are many men who can have those platonic relationships with women, and there's no sort of stress there, no more stress than any relationship than a man would have. It's all egalitarian. I still think that it is important for men to have male friends and important for women to have female friends. If a woman has only male friends and if a man has only female friends, then there ends up being sort of a disconnect with the way that their brain kind of tends to work, and it can be very ostracizing. This is something that I've seen before, where it's like, well, I'm frustrated with the way that men communicate, and it's like, well, men aren't frustrated with the way that they communicate because that's the way they communicate with each other. If you want to say that you're going to be one of the boys, it's like, well, without actually being male, you might never actually be one of the boys. I would say that that's actually kind of the beauty of it, is that you aren't male. It's like, yeah, you are female, and that's that it comes with the territory of being different. You are not better or worse. You are different, better in some ways, worse in other ways perhaps, but there's a trade-off with everything. Same thing for being male. It's like, oh, I'm male, so therefore I can't do XYZ things that females do. It's like, well, the grass is always greener on the other side, and I think that many women, the vast majority of women right now, well, if you look into sort of like the sort of feminist culture, the feminist ideology, especially when it comes to such of these recent waves, that there's a very pervasive idea of just like men are just like they've got everything and they're like perfect, and they just like their lives are perfect, they've got everything, and yet they're still going to complain about this and that, and they're still going to do these things to us. And it's like, I think there's a backlash. I think that like sort of the Meninist or anti-misandrist movement is just sort of a counterpunch to feminists going too far. But egalitarians will say it's like, well, to each their own. If you've got this problem that was caused by that person, it's the responsibility of that person to rectify that problem and to stop being a problem in that way. And that applies to everybody across the board. There don't need to be special rules for women and special rules for men, but it's really up to sort of the needs of each individual, and the ability of other people to actually cater to those needs. So it's simple in that sense, but in this sense, I do think it's kind of strange to say a man needs a lover, in a sexual sense. A man needs a sister, and a man needs but as a wife you can be all of those. It's like, well, no, you could have just said friends. So I think Neil is correct in this line of thinking.
Like, that would also emphasize shared interests. Maybe the next one will be better.
Mother energy. She takes care of you.
And no, he just doubled down on the incest angle. It can't get any worse though.
See, I'm not certain necessarily if he's taking any sort of an incest angle. Just because he started with saying that one of the needs is sexual doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, just by saying like family members and the roles that those family members, it's like you can disconnect the roles of the family members from the family members themselves. So it's like, you know, if a mother is a caretaker, then I guess that's sort of the most charitable interpretation that I could offer, is that, well, men need a little bit of caretaking as well, but I don't think that that's a specifically male need. You know, to have somebody to show charity, compassion, and love towards you is not something that men need. It's something that all people need. And so to say that that is, you know, just because many women who are mothers are good at providing for that need doesn't mean that that men shouldn't be doing it and that men should expect it. It's like, you know, in a egalitarian relationship, in any sort of a situation where two people are like, well, these are my needs and these are my abilities, you say, well, you've got those abilities that can help out my needs, and you've got, you know, and vice versa. So it's like, well, we come and we have a bit of an exchange, you know, kind of as I was saying, sort of a romantic capitalism, as I said in the last episode.
Right?
You want daughter energy.
Yeah, I think because I had misheard a single word, I had thought that this was a little bit less charitable, certainly, because, you know, I at that point you don't really care exactly what he's got to say. So I you know, before with the thing that I said is like, you don't actually want to grant anybody good points. This is obviously not a very good example of that. And I was certainly misremembering it from probably when I was tired last night. So
you realize there's
like,
still one left in this list, but I kept thinking
Yeah.
it couldn't get any worse, and then it did. So we're
he
just gonna stop it right here.
he
We're
cuts
done.
cuts
We're
it off,
stopping right
and
here.
he's done with it, obviously.
What the fuck?
The way that he that he curses in that situation is, it's just funny because he's a very milquetoast sounding person, despite kind of saying several things that I think are actually like quite unsavory in many situations, quite unfair. But it is kind of funny to hear him swear like that. So it's like, you know, that one was actually a hit. Not going to call that one a miss at all, because I think I misheard the initial line and I was like, this is actually really uncharitable, because I think that maybe some of the things that he was saying weren't actually offensive. It's like, well, no, from that perspective, like there's not really any, like, maybe there was a point somewhere, but it obviously gets lost when you are really so awful at communicating it. Like, it's like, that's ridiculous. And really just like, if you want to actually make the point that men have like 5 needs, you can list those needs without saying that it's like lover energy, mother energy, sister energy, and daughter energy. It's just like, because he was like, well, if we're talking about the needs of a man through a woman, then I'm just going to name a bunch of like female roles that I generally have in my, you know, off the top of my head. It's like, well, but you don't realize how that sounds, and clearly you're not getting the point across very well. Because if the idea is that, you know, men need, you know, a lover, someone who they can mutually enjoy sexual activity with, no issue. Men need, you know, someone who cares and nurtures for them. I don't think that's entirely false either. Like, you know, you know, there's balance with it. You know, obviously there shouldn't be, men should not be making their wives into like mothers, like for themselves. It's just like, I want you to like Nicole says in Gumball, where it's like, I have raised 3 children and 1 husband. Like, it's like, you should actually be an adult. You should be a man. You should be an adult, and you should be able to take care of all the things that you can take care of without like requiring some sort of a I don't know. It's like, you know, you should be able to be an independent human that is just helped by a romantic relationship. It's like there should be no sort of like expectation set on another person to pick up the slack that you've been been. It's like, no, you should be able to clean your own room, do your own laundry and everything. And, just because you can doesn't mean that, the other person should never. It's like, if you are looking to, if you see that, oh, you got a lot on your plate there, let me take a bit of that for you so that, we can actually get through this easier together because I can actually help, then, that's compassion and charity, and that goes both ways. It's like, yes, you should be charitable and compassionate to your spouse, companion, wife, husband, etc. But obviously, that comes with a give and take. And if she doesn't feel like you actually value her, then you are going to have a fundamental breakdown in the relationship. As a man, your job is to ensure that she knows that you feel like, and maybe that goes both ways as well. Men don't necessarily feel that need all the time where it's like, well, I know you care, I just want to feel like you care. For me, that's being listened to. If I'm talking about something, I don't want to be like interrupted with a non sequitur because I don't actually feel like you're listening. I know you care, but I want to feel like you care by actually like having a good, intelligent, like involved conversation with me rather than just like kind of going off in another direction. But that's sort of a very different need than a lot of women, where it's like, well, I need to kind of be reminded that I'm special to him in a sense. And for a lot of men, that's too much, and it's like, I just gotta suck it up. If you love her, you have to understand that that in order for you to show it to her, it's more than just being a paycheck. It's more than just coming home and saying, well, I made this home, so where's dinner? It's like, well, made it, but bought it, or work in order to be able to own it, whatever it may be. It's just like, goes both ways with that. I think the sort of daughter energy, it's like, yeah, if you want a daughter, then you should have one. Like, I don't know where that like came from, where it's just like, yeah, your wife and your daughter are two different people. If you think that your wife should be your daughter, then that's not good. And especially if you mean like it's like, no, it's just bankrupt. And I don't think it's entirely uncharitable to just say like, no, we're not really. I can't say that the final point is going to be good, but I still think it is fair to. It's like, okay, we're going to hear your entire argument, and if your entire argument speaks for itself to be pretty ridiculous, then we've heard it out and we see that it's not good, clearly. So it's like it's pretty simple. It's not like there's a really big like trouble with that. I don't know why that's difficult for other things. So not as bad as an example that I would say I didn't think it could get any worse, but then it did. So can't really. It's like I'll shield myself for the next one, but I want to see what you got at least so that I can fully respond to you. And then you could have the video would be a little bit longer, but you could have a cogent overall point of saying like, actually, the point that you're trying to say is getting lost in the words that you're saying, which I think would make it a lot easier. There was definitely another video that was a little more that I would definitely be a little more hard on than that one. But so this is another AZ Hero one. It's old enough that his name was still AZ Hero back then, but of course he's changed his name. Not to spend like too much time on that. My big contention with this, and I was gonna get, as kind of I had mentioned earlier, is that what he does, as demonstrated by the previous episode where I discussed his entire tirade about pro shipping and everything. But also is just evidentiary in every single post that he makes, every single bit of work that he contributes to the internet that is in this sort of a thing, this sort of like, what is it, like call out posts, like ranting idiocy, is he creates these really, amorphous, simple characters where it's just, color coded and all of that, and like creates a situation. I think there was a comic that someone had made that was sort of a satire of this, where it's just like, I hate this type of comic, and it showed like this. It pointed out, it's just like, the final comic strip or whatever just ended in like that person like killing the other person or something. It was just like, here's this like fake person that I created, and then like let me just assassinate them in front of it. Just this type. It's virtue signaling at its highest degree. And I wish I could actually like blow this up a little bit. It's obnoxious that it's tiny, but there's Instagram Reels for you. This entire structure is all about strawmanning, and that's a fantastic thing about being actually able to respond to somebody who is saying something, who is, if you want to actually show a situation that's going on, rather than just showing your perception of that situation and taking that perception that you have for what other people are saying, especially when it's a very, just an extremely tilted, uncharitable perception of what that person is saying, and then compressing it into a fictional character that does not exist, that nobody actually believes this, and then like turning them into this demon. It's just like, no, the vast majority of human beings are not dark triad people who are just like inherently they're sort of mentally deficient or morally deficient in some sort of way, where they literally can't feel like empathy for other people, and like they just do sadistic evil things. It's just like, no, you've been watching like you've been reading too many like nursery rhymes or something, like fairy tales. It's like, when you actually look at the real world, the reason why evil things happen, the reason why people do evil things, is because if they think they have a good cause for it, they will turn a blind eye towards some real genuine evil. There was a study that was done, I don't recall exactly where it was at, but they took in a bunch of teachers, I believe, and then they had a bunch of actors as the students. And they told the teachers that this is for science, without actually saying, wait, you teachers are actually the study group. We are studying your behavior, not the behavior of the person on the other side of the glass. But they were on, the watching side of the glass. So it was a very interesting situation. They effectively took these actors and hooked them up to a fake machine that was supposed to shock them, and then they basically just asked them trivia questions and would shock them in punishment of when they got the questions wrong. And as time went on, they continually increased the frequency. I believe it's voltage hertz and amperage kills, or it might be vice versa, but whatever it was, they were giving these people so much that they would be in excruciating pain, so much pain that they would have died simply from the pain, perhaps more than the actual lethalness of the charge that they were actually getting shocked with. But because they told the scientists the teachers, because they told the teachers, this is for science, you need to do this, the teachers would continually press the button to shock them every single time they got the question wrong, because they thought that it was for a good cause. They turned a blind eye towards this evil, and it was 9 out of 10 turned a blind eye towards it and said, well, we're doing the right thing. This is a sacrifice we have to make for the good of science. And these actors were writhing in pain, very clearly something extremely evil, but the teachers turned a blind eye to it. 9 out of 10. And everybody who looks at that situation will be, I would be the 1 in 10. Would you really? Would you really be the 1 in 10 that took a stand for it and said, no, this is wrong. This is clearly goes against all of the principles that I hold to be dear. And it's like, well, people make excuses to it's part of the reason why, with the sort of the previous issue that we were speaking on in, I believe, the last episode, we'd finished up with the what is it called, voluntary extinction. It's very important to actually have discussions on whether or not these what makes it right. These basic fundamental principles upon which we built our society, what we believe, what we initially sort of have a knee-jerk reaction against, of like, well, that just must be wrong. It just sounds wrong. It sounds wrong is not enough, because if it sounds wrong, you can be convinced against it if you don't actually think about that. And if you don't engage in critical thinking, then you are going to be convinced of some remarkably evil things. So, people can't think that they are good, because if they think they're good, they won't actually see that they'll make excuses for the inclination to do evil that resides within them. If everybody thinks they're somewhere in the middle, then that's where you actually have, knowing every single person, seeing I have an inclination to do evil, and I have to find that inclination and see it whenever it arises, and combat that with well-reasoned good thinking. And if I can't do that, then how do I even know? If I don't have sort of an antivirus that looks at each thing and takes a scan and says, is this good or evil? And it can't actually see evil, then it's going to just kind of end up like a lazy pat down, where it's just like, oh, I mean, normally I'd be a little more concerned, but we have more important things to deal with. So it's okay to do this terribly evil thing. It's really easy to look and take a perception of the way that other people think and think, oh, they're just evil and they just want this. And it's like, well, okay, but look into the situation and try to understand why they're behaving the way they're behaving, and you will actually understand how to prevent that type of a situation by calling it out where it exists. You show them the principles and say, this is what is right, and I understand why you're behaving this way. It doesn't make it right. You can take a principled position against many of the things I'm certain that Azuhiro will rant about, or make these stupid call-out posts about. But if you make it a straw man, then you are never going to be able, like, all you are doing is sucking the nuance out of a topic, because you actually have no nuance in your perspective of that topic in and of itself. You know nothing about this. Why are you trying to... all it does is it turns the temperature up on these types of debates, because it makes people mad about, oh yeah, there's someone who totally thinks that way. So then they see similar little phrases, and he'll pepper in a billion little phrases that he sees and picks up in certain things, not trying to understand what each of them is actually saying, and just throw them all into one impossible fictional character that there are some statements that are not good arguments, some statements that require far more nuance, and there are some statements that are perfectly good and rational arguments and need to be given more credence, but he just throws them all in. And it's very indicative of the shifting of the Overton window, where now all of a sudden, somebody who is just understands that there's acts and accountability, rights and responsibility. Just because you act a certain way doesn't mean that you can't be accountable for it. There are going to be natural consequences in everything. Someone who believes that is going to be in the same category as somebody who, I don't know, objectifies people. Like, it's just nonsense, and that's basically what this topic is about. So obviously, frame one here is harmlessly being comfortable in their skin and enjoying the clothes on their body. First of all, you have to kind of extrapolate from this simplistically stupid situation that he's fabricated, and actually look more on, it's like both of these characters are so simple that neither of them really are even wearing clothes. I think there's a big disconnect. Like this post is a massive, just a glaring example of what's the word, of cognitive dissonance that there ever can be. Like, just enjoying the skin on my body. It's just like, I'm comfortable in my skin and I'm enjoying the clothes on my body. It's like, or the lack of thereof. It's like, feeling hurt due to the actions of others, especially if those actions are prompted by your behavior, is not always the fault of the people who did those actions. Sometimes the things that people say in response to your behavior is a perfectly justified response to that behavior. And actually, if you didn't want that response, maybe you shouldn't behave that way. It depends entirely on the situation, but this is this sort of gross oversimplification that, I don't personally believe that the clothes on your body, the arrangement of the particles necessarily means one thing or another, but there are certainly objective measures that you can draw in order to understand why there are certain perceptions about certain people and their behavior, and what to do about them if you don't like those perceptions. So, somebody being comfortable in their skin is not in any way linked to the clothing that they wear. Like, it's this weird, just utterly bizarre mental trick that people play, where it's just like, well, I'm comfortable in the skin. In order for me to be comfortable with my appearance and comfortable in my skin, I have to wear certain clothing. And it's just like, well, do you though? If your issue is with the clothing that you're wearing, then like, you just wear different clothing, clearly. But if you can't feel comfortable in your own skin, then wearing certain clothing is not even going to change that. It's like, there's a difference between being comfortable in skin and comfortable in certain clothing. Wearing clothing for forever has been it's turned from I guess iDub said it in the what was the video from ages ago? Hype beasts can suck my left nut, I think is the title of it. I have it practically memorized because I've seen it so many times. It's just hilarious. But I believe he says it in that. It's like, we've gone sort of post-ironic when it comes to, not post-ironic, but like post-sensical when it comes to the literal functions of clothing. Like, he's like, we're at the point where Kanye takes his shoes off before he walks into a construction site because he doesn't want to get them dirty. It's like taking off your raincoat because you don't want to get it wet. It's like the exact purpose of the clothing has been completely undermined by the fact that you are wearing them for fashion, and that is the new purpose of the clothing. It's like the raincoat that looks so cool that you don't even want to use it, and you collect all the sneakers in the closet, but they all just stay in the closet because they're like now like a valued commodity that is done for collection rather than actual use. Pokemon cards that have massive values attributed to them due to the collecting of them, but when it actually comes to playing those cards, there's not much purpose to playing those cards because they're so rare and valuable, and also because they've changed the scale of damage. So it's just like, well, you wouldn't even want to play that Charizard. The only reason that you want to own it is because it's so rare and valuable. It's kind of strange, and I'm not saying I'm necessarily opposed to that, but in sort of the sense with goodbye bot, in sort of the sense of people saying, like, what's the word? It's like the clothing that you've had for generations. It's like the purpose of clothing is, for warmth, for protection. It's a utilitarian purpose. It's so that you can use it. It has utility. It fulfills a purpose. Whereas a lot of what it kind of ends up being is what initially I think as a luxury, because if you are in the state of nature, the reason you wear clothing is for protection from the elements, protection from other creatures, protection from whatever it may be. It's to shield you. It's sort of as an additional layer of skin that you create for yourself, in a sense. But it begins to be, well, now it's about self-expression. This is the way that I can express myself, which I think that is a direct result of being very sort of blessed, I suppose. Everybody, like the entire existence of fashion as a concept comes out of the fact that there is no necessity for clothing to behave in a way that is strictly useful. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's sort of a secondary function that has just gotten more and more prominent, gained more prominence as time has gone on, because people don't really need to wear clothing for the purpose of using it, rather than wearing it for sort of being a bit of a peacock. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's like, the idea that you have a right to enjoy the clothes on your body is strange. It's not even necessarily a need that you need to enjoy the clothes on your body, in the sense that I just like looking this way. This is part of a very pervasive and I think harmful idea that has entered into our society, that having clothes, it's egotistical. It's egoism. It's like, what is most important in life is that I feel good. That sounds like hedonism, and that is not a pathway to happiness. Just doing whatever you feel like in the situation because you feel like doing it and you enjoy doing it is hedonism. And actually discipline is what gets you happiness in the end, because if you just did whatever you felt like doing your entire life, you just rack up loads of credit card debt, spending money on things that really didn't get you anywhere, and then you just die, and I don't know, you have loads of bastard children, and you whatever it may be, but it's like eventually you run into some pretty significant consequences, and those consequences are not just consequences that are exacted upon you in retaliation to the thing that you did that pissed somebody else off. It's just like, no, a lot of the time, it's an act of nature, in a sense. It's just like, hey, if you poke the bear's going to bite you back. In this context, that doesn't necessarily apply, but as an overarching concept, acts and accountability, rights and responsibility. You can't have one without the other. If you behave in a certain way, there are natural consequences of that. We use consequences in a negative connotation because it's the negative ones you got to worry about. If you behave in a way that exacts negative consequences upon you, you should avoid behaving in that way. It's a natural behavioral, what's the word? Just natural consequences. And if you have a problem with that, then you have more of a problem in the world, in the plane of existence on which you reside, than with, I don't know, the people that you share that space with. It's not necessarily people who are punishing you, rather than you doing things that end up punishing yourself in the end. So with that sort of going in, it's just a bizarre situation entirely. This is very loud. It's like makes weird comment on their body and appearance, signs of discomfort, and it's like, I think this is sort of assumed to be in the presence, or in the context of of social media. On social media, people say things that they wouldn't say to people in real life, or maybe they do say things that they would say in real life. Plenty of the things that people say online should probably never be uttered out loud to other people. It's just like, yeah, that's rad, but you can be made uncomfortable by somebody making I don't know what it means by weird comment. And this is part of the trouble with removing all nuance and all. It's like you are generalizing so hard that I actually don't know whether or not I'm on your side, because and this is sort of, I don't know if it's born of sort of postmodernism, but it is an issue that I have with sort of feminism in general, where it's like I just see this thing and it just feels wrong to me, and it's just like, can you give me an example, because then I can actually tell you whether or not I think that that's a bad thing. But if without an example, then it's like I can't really say that I'm gonna like march and raise a fist with you if it's not actually a valid example. I think it's part of the reason why many social justice movements in general deliberately choose poor examples, because they know that those poor examples are going to have people say, no, there's actually nuance to this situation, and the nuance in this situation actually belies that I don't think I'm using that word properly. The nuance in this situation means that it is actually, this is not a this is not something that has been done that has been bad, or it's not as bad as you're trying to make it out to be. And then people can point to them and just say, oh, you're like racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, and it's just like, well, no. If I didn't say, it's like you are putting me as a principled, reasonable person in the exact same category as somebody who is just like motivated by some sort of a Machiavellian hatred or something. And it's like, actually speak with people who disagree with you. This is part of the purpose of this entire segment, is obviously to promote my point of view to a certain degree, but also I'm promoting my point of view in direct response to somebody else's nonsense. It's like if you spoke to people who disagreed with you, and as long as they were willing to actually hear you out, then you'd actually be able to, both of you, come out of that situation with a better understanding of what the other people believe, and maybe you'd be able to change some people's minds. But if you just look into these amorphous situations of like, oh, there's sexism, but it's out there somewhere. There's hatred all around us, and it's just the boogeyman. It's just like, don't point to something that's amorphous and invisible and ever present. It's just like, that's just nonsensical. Point to a specific situation, and then I can actually review the evidence and review the details of that situation, and then I'll get back to you on that, or whatever it may be. But like, if you look out into the ether and just like draw this sort of perception that you have, it's like, this is not actually productive. Give me a real fucking example instead of making a nonsensical example like this. But it's like, the only way that I can steelman this argument is to make like leaps and leaps and leaps in logic, because that is exactly what this is leaps of logic, where it's like, we're assuming that this woman, presumably, men can make their faces like this, but let's just assume it's a woman and this is a man. We're assuming that this woman is just wearing clothing. It's like, it's not like it's showing some crazy amount, and it's not like it's accentuating certain body features into some sort of a, what's the word, I don't know, like, this is the issue, is that a lot of people will just start shoehorning some sort of an example that they saw recently, because they also share a similar perception, have been exposed to similar situations as this prick, and then they think the exact same way, because they think of, oh, I remember that time when I saw this person on social media have people talk about that. But it's like, I take an example of what's her name, it's like one of her name is, her TikTok handle is like a Roman goddess or something, Psyche's Wings, there it is. It's like, she literally has a medical condition that makes her breasts extremely large, and if she gets a reduction, the amount of time, it's like she's tried to lose weight, and at her very lowest weight there was still massive, and it's like, you get if you try to lose enough weight to be able to get a reduction, the amount that the reduction actually doesn't help, is extremely, it's like the body just wants to have a large amount of breast tissue there, and it's going to have it regardless. And it's like, the back problems and the way that other people would sexualize her without her consent in any sort of a way was something that she's just sort of had to deal with her entire life. And it's like, in that situation, you can see a lot of the comments that people make. I think in many ways, TikTok and social media in general, people have dark humor and people will just say things. And a lot of the time it'll be like, people can respond with class to it and they're not really that offended by it. And they take it in stride. Sometimes you can kind of mock back a lot of the time. Like I think sort of the opposite example of this would be Yells Zero on TikTok. Is like her entire thing, like her entire claim to fame is making like offhanded sort of ironic jokes that refer to her breasts and the size thereof and the prominence thereof. And it's like, people in her comments will say, in her comment section, they'll say something like something about milkers or whatever, and she'll respond to it. And sometimes it's poking a little bit of fun back, but there's no actual offense taken there because she's put herself in the position where she owns it, and in a sense has kind of made it her entire thing, where she's sort of objectifying herself in a way that makes other people think it's okay to objectify her. And it's like, well, no harm, no foul. She doesn't actually mind that because she's doing it herself, because she sort of enjoys the attention and actually monetizes the attention that it gets from her. I still think there's a certain level of dignity that ends up getting lost in that situation, and some of that is on the person. Like men, sort of the natural man, biologically, men don't really want women to be dignified in many ways. The natural man sees a woman as a sexual object, but with reason, you use reason and you say, well, seeing her as an object is wrong because she's not an object. She actually has feelings. She has, value. And for me to sort of deflect against that, or what's the word? To sort of go beyond that is wrong to do. And in the same breath, you can certainly say that it's not in the same breath. It's just if women don't want to be treated as sexual objects, then they shouldn't present themselves as sexual objects. And there's a difference between making a video and you are in the video, but your body is also in the video, and your body just naturally, it's like the reason that person's having that thought is not necessarily because of your body, it's because they are having that thought. Anybody who has sexual thoughts, because we don't entirely control our thoughts, but you do control speaking them. And if you type out a comment in direct response to somebody and their body, then you actually have to be thinking about the way that goes across. And I think a lot of men really struggle with, because it's an intuitive thing. It takes taking your own psyche and plucking it up and then plopping it down in their shoes, and then actually thinking, what is the way that they think about this, and how would they respond? There's many men who just make completely undue comments where it's just like, well, I'm not attracted, in that some rubbish like that. And it's just like, well, yeah, but did anybody actually ask you? There's all sorts of times where it's just like, there's nothing warranted about you saying this. Like, you didn't have to say this, and in fact, by saying it, you've kind of done more. You've not actually contributed in a positive way. You've really drawn out. You're taking more out than you're putting in a sense. I suppose you could call it social capital in a sense. So it's like, sometimes a quote unquote weird comment can absolutely be something that is said where it's just like they're just coming from their perspective, and it's just like, hey, you look hot. I don't know, obviously in a much more objectifying way. That if you just say weird, it's just like, well, weird is an extremely subjective term. I think a lot of the people who make or consume or have this kind of perspective, I suppose I should say, just don't actually have a good grip on objective reality. It's like why do you use such subjective words to describe things? The entire purpose of communication is so that you can actually communicate. If you say weird, then I don't necessarily know what you mean by weird. The purpose of communication is that we both agree on the definitions of words. So if you say something that doesn't have a strict definition, or you misuse that word in the sense that it does not align with the actual intended definition or the accepted definition, generally accepted definition of that word, then it's your fault for miscommunicating that. It's like, what am I supposed to think that he said in this context? You should actually create a real, if you're going to create a fictional example of something, you should actually create an example that could be logically believable. This situation, with how many variables aren't even defined, is really, it's like you clearly would make a terrible writer, because there's so much in this situation that is just presumed from your perspective, and it's like, I'm not in your own head. I can't mind read you. Like, just actually explain to me what you are trying to say, because I've seen comments that have been made in the comment section of Psyche's Wings, for example, where it's like, people say some pretty demeaning things, and it's like, I think there's a difference in kind to your behavior and whether or not you are actually doing something that is dignified, and somebody else responding to that with an undignified response. It's just like, there's a certain nuance and balance to have with that, but this does not actually do anything to actually help in the conversation of nuance and balance on this topic, like signs of discomfort. But it's like, when without even reading any of these, when you look at the like expression of this fictional character creature, like, it's clear that in the perspective of the writer here, that this is just some sort of demonic, monstrous being, and it's just like, these people don't exist. They don't. Like, you actually have to give me a real situation that's happening, and show me, tell me if that is, if you reckon that is justified or not. But how am I supposed to draw my own conclusion from the example that you're using, when the example is not only fictional but completely nonsensical and just rooted entirely in your own subjective perception of the universe? This is nonsense. The only thing that this is useful for is confirmation bias for somebody else who also comes from a similar point of view. It's like, I don't really come at situations like this from a point of view. I just come at it from what is objectively going on in this situation, and therefore what objectively was done that was wrong or right. And if your entire idea is this simple, then you are not doing anything to help this situation. These kinds of creatures who are just evil, like evil beings, it's just nonsense. It's like Twitter, OnlyFans. If you ask someone for their Twitter, assuming that somebody has a Twitter, and assuming that somebody has an OnlyFans, and asking for, their link to either of those platforms, is not in the same damn category. Like, you are actually stupid by putting those in the same category. It's just like, just remove Twitter entirely from that situation. Like, people use Twitter for many purposes, and some people use it to share illicit images of themselves or artwork or of whatever the hell, but a lot of people just use it as a platform for discussion of many topics, with many moods in context of that. It's just like the amount of people who use, if someone asks you for your Twitter, they could be asking you for any of the reasons why anybody uses Twitter in the first place. Like, that is just nonsense to say if you ask for somebody's Twitter, then that's just as objectifying as assuming that they have an OnlyFans and asking for that as well. This is nonsense. Remove that entirely, then, like, you might actually start making a little bit of damn sense. It's nonsense. You're definitely looking for attention. This is one thing that I think it's like, I was just listening to a podcast that was talking about social media and sort of the capital. It's like, the what's the word? The addictive nature of social media, where, somebody you know, the only reason anybody is posting on social media is so that it, you know, like gets interaction or likes, so whatever it may be, you know, because they enjoy it and whatnot. It's just like, since when was it actually wrong to look for attention on the website, on the platform that is entirely created to gain the attention of other people towards whatever topic you are discussing, whether it be you and your art, content, whatever it may be that you provide, or, you know, your perspective on a certain topic, or whatever it may be. It's just like, yes, people look for attention no matter what. Like, stop being nonsensical about this. And a big issue with this is like, is this happening in person, or is this happening on social media? Because this seems to be the type of thing that's happening in social media. But then you see this one, they looked at me first. It's like, oh, right, because it's actually talking about like breasts. It's like, oh, the you know, the breasts looked at me first type of deal. It's like, it's a corny joke. Like, get a grip. But it's like, you know, there's, if anybody is going to call out people for wanting attention on social media that is designed for getting attention, the only reason that anybody else posts in reaction to anybody else is for that attention, or to just, you know, further a cause, or, you know, get something off that chest, you know, express themselves, whatever it may be. And it's just like, yeah, you know, somebody who makes a video of themselves, and is doing it for the exact same reason that someone is commenting on that video, is because they desire for some sort of attention to be directed towards what they said, what they did, who they are, in a way that sparks some kind of a dopamine response from them. It's like, why is this controversial to say that somebody's looking for attention? You know, in that sense, I don't really think it's necessarily warranted to even point it out. It's just like, yeah, someone's looking for attention. But you know, there's a middle ground to be had of like, just because you are saying that somebody is looking for attention doesn't necessarily mean that you are like being demeaning of them in the process of saying that. Like, that's just nonsense. Like, you know, saying you're definitely looking for attention, I think contextually, because there's no damn context to this nonsensical, non-existent situation. You know, it's entirely contextual, where there may be a certain situation where somebody is posting about something, and it's just like, you don't want to do this. I'm attributing a motive to what your actions are, because you actually want attention. You're actually an attention whore. You're actually doing whatever it may be. Like, I think there's a really simple and easy way to rule that out, and that is actually by assessing the situation that is actually a real situation. Like, give me an example, and then I'll be able to tell you if I think that they're looking for attention. But without a damn example, then I don't know. Like, why? What is with this nonsense? You know, recoil. It's just like I don't even necessarily know how to respond to that. It's like, you know, I suppose what you would describe that as is a request to sexually to grant sexual gratification towards somebody using your body. So it's like, you know, I saw this part of your body, and therefore I'm asking to see the recoil in order to like satisfy sort of my sexual nature of appreciating the, like, watching recoil or whatever that may be. I can't tell you that is objectifying without context, because it's like, I suppose in any context, if you're requesting recoil from somebody, you are requesting for them to use their body as a form of sexual gratification. You know, it's like, hey, you should do something that I enjoy. And it's like, well, there are obviously boundaries to be had for that. You know, if two people are married and one person asks the other person for recoil, knowing that they enjoy sort of a... What in the world was that sound? Why did I hear like a... Like, where in the world did that come from? That was weird. I have a virus I don't know what's going on. It's about time to get the fan on. Maybe it'd be nice if it pointed at me too. But like, without context, there's no real way of knowing, you know. First of all, I don't think objectification is objectively a bad thing in universally in all contexts. You know, there's a lot of qualifiers to that, but you know, if you're going to, you know, state a principle, then there may have to, believe it or not, be qualifiers on the damn statement. I have to fill this stupid water. Like, requesting recoil from your significant other because it's like, hey, do something that I enjoy because I'll enjoy it, and I enjoy that you are granting my request. It's like, you know, the reason why somebody is enjoying some sort of a sexual gratification is not, in that type of a loving scenario, is not just because they enjoy the sort of carnal desire and satisfying that carnal desire. You know, it's like, you know, human beings are sexual creatures. Most beings are sexual creatures, frankly, and they enjoy behavior of a sexual nature, and you know, they need, you know, they've got needs, and you know, granting those requests when those needs are announced is something that they don't have to do, but something that if they do it, then it shows sort of affection. It's a way of showing love towards each other and enjoying satisfying, you know, carnal or just natural desires together. It's not like it's something that's bad inherently. Because if it was, then nobody should ever be able to have sex with anybody, because they are, you know, they're objectifying them in every single situation. It's like, well, no, it's entirely based on the context. No, it's entirely dependent on the context. If the context is something like, you know, let's just say it's a Psyche video, and Psyche is sitting there with, like, you know, just trying to make like a you know, she's trying to talk about a topic or trying to make a little like funny video or whatever it may be, do a little dance, whatever people do on TikTok, and somebody just has recoil, then it's just like, well, you don't know this person, and you're not actually talking about the content of the video. You are simply there requesting for sexual gratification. Obviously, that is not a good thing. But I think there's a leap in logic here that assumes that is what the situation is. It's like, why are you going to show all of these comments in the context of a situation that doesn't exist? Why couldn't you just show a situation that exists and say, hey, yeah, that's kind of messed up, you know? Like, why does it have to be all amorphous like this? You know, this must be all you are good for, huh? Okay, sorry, but maybe I misinterpreted, because I was like, wait, is it going to say your, or is it going to say your? But this must be all you're good for, huh? You know, there's a certain idea, like, because you get this comment on a Psyche's on a Psyche video, and it's just like, she doesn't make the videos because she doesn't want her entire personality. Her videos are more about her personality, her perception, what she wants to be talking about, than it is about her body. But then if you're talking about a Yells video, a lot of the entire thing is cracking jokes at the fact that she's got titties. It's like, you know, if you say recoil in that context, you're saying it in the context of somebody who has already made many videos that kind of end up being sexually gratifying to a lot of people, and she's self-aware about that. It's just like, if somebody is willingly, you know, putting themselves up on that pedestal where they're kind of seeing themselves as it's like, if you are objectifying yourself, then you are setting yourself up to that that kind of a request, that kind of an attitude. it's like it entirely depends on what they are doing that is objectifying, and what the interaction is that is objectifying. Because if somebody is objectifying them in the exact same way that they objectify themselves, and they probably shouldn't be mad about that, because they are inviting that energy by displaying that energy. Like, you know, if someone says, "This must be all you're good for, huh?" to Yells, she's probably gonna take a crack, you know, at that, because she's gonna be like, well, yeah, like, you know, she's self-aware about it, and you can see that she talks about it, because it's like every single video makes a joke about something along those lines. If you say that to somebody who, you know, like a psyche, it's just like that ends up not being so fair, because she's not actually there to show off her chest. It's like it just shows itself off no matter what clothing that she puts it in. So it's like, you know, it feels like the only option for me is to be as skinny as as physically possible, and to wear extremely baggy clothing, which is a really unfortunate thing, that kind of ends up being sort of a pressure that's put on women of a certain size and shape. It's like, is it warranted if somebody is actually inviting that kind of attention? Because I swear I've seen people will post thirst traps, and then get mad that they posted thirst traps. I've seen people who actively have OnlyFans, and, you know, it's like you've got the OnlyFans, but then you also like post nudes freely, and then they get mad at people who are being like horny in response to that stuff. It's just like, I'm not your object to you know, to with which you should be pleasuring yourself. That's not the purpose of my existence. And it's just like, well, to them it is. Like, the entire reason that you make money, the entire reason that you get attention, is because you are advertising yourself as nothing but an object. And it's like, just because you speak about things every once in a while doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, people are just going to forget that your main MO, your main shtick is getting naked online for other people. It's like this goes for male and female. It's just like, if somebody behaves like that's all they're good for, then it's not really that uncharitable of a thing to say that, well, maybe is this actually all you're good for? But I think a lot of the time, maybe some of the perceptions of the people who have this, who say these types of things, maybe they aren't as logical about it, and they just sort of see anybody who behaves in that kind of a way, you know, they've got a bias against it, and it's like, but you have to actually demonstrate that bias. Fatherless behavior, it's like, well, it depends on the situation, obviously. If you, because I do think that behaving in an undignified manner, and I'll get into that in a moment, but behaving in an undignified manner is largely affected by whether or not somebody has a father. And if they don't have a father, then maybe they may behave in a more undignified manner than they would have if they actually did have a father. It's like, you know, if the entire idea here is that they are wearing extremely revealing clothing to the point where it's like, well, why are you even wearing clothing at all at this point? You may as well just go whole hog with it. And the response is fatherless behavior, like kind of like the I remember Dextero reporting on it, where it was like there was some like titty streamer on Twitch, you know, I don't know, whatever people call them, just like I mean, it's undignified, because you are in and of yourself dumbing yourself down to nothing but a pair of titties, and then, like, you know, you dance around and you make them like move whenever you get like a donation and whatnot. And it was so close, because she was completely topless. It was like that, literally that close, but only just like, it was like you were pushing the line so hard that this is practically pornographic, and you're doing it in a way to just be able to make a ton of money. And the Twitch mods Twitch mods only care if somebody like male gets naked, and then they come out and they say, actually no, it's okay, we allow nudity, entirely. We change the thing, and then they have to go back on it because it's like tons of people being like, yeah, I'm just gonna like straight up show my, be full on, just full on naked, got my cock out, like on Twitch. It's like that. Then they kind of realize after all the backlash that's like, well, wait a minute, we kind of jumped the gun on this decision. It's like, yeah, you think, but it's like, it's undignified to be selling out your body to other people online, and I think it's also undignified to be buying into it too. Like if you just are going around looking for sort of sexual gratification from watching other people have sex, from watching other people get naked, people who you will never ever see, all you are doing is succumbing to the natural man. All you are doing is satisfying carnal desires, and at that point you are an animal, because there is no reason that is actually behind what you were doing. You may attempt to use reason, utilize it, weaponize reason in a way to try to justify your actions and your decisions to others. But you're not actually going to use your reason to think, is what I'm doing wrong? And is it, are there negative consequences from this? And if you actually look at the history of mankind, it's one of the wild things is that, people live on an earth that is so replete. It is, no, I think I'm trying to use the opposite word, but like it's so rich in the knowledge of thousands of years of life experience that it's like, how can you ever mess up when you have so much life experience coming that's come before you? How can you ever screw up? And it obviously, as imperfect beings, it's still difficult to be perfect, obviously. But when there's so much of it out there, it's like at that point you have done this to yourself by doing something that has clearly demonstrated itself to be unsuccessful. Like, it's they always go with this unfalsifiable rubbish where it's just like, well, true socialism has never been tried, or to whatever it may be. It's just like, yeah, so read a book maybe. Like, look into the history of this type of thing, you'll realize that actually this doesn't work. And if you really think that you can have a completely happy and stable life when you are doing undignified things, if you are a male, vast majority of males are probably, they struggle with the pornography addiction because they are far more sexual creatures than females, far more susceptible to that carnal desire and nature. That is undignified, and you should try to find help, because vast majority of people who are in that situation are not going to be happy, because it just satisfies temporary needs and doesn't actually fix any long-term problems. If you are female and it's just like, well, I need to be able to be making money, so I'm going to be making money by doing something that takes no talent whatsoever. I'm just using the body that I've been given to sell it out to other people. You are dehumanizing yourself. That is undignified, and you should actually do something that is edifying. It's like, do something that is dignified, and you will be happier. Use your ability to discipline yourself, and you will be happier. But without it, this is just hedonism. It's just like, well, I just want to wear whatever I want, and I want to be able to make money by showing my body to other people online. It's just like, well, yeah, I understand you want to do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to, but if you look at the history of human behavior, the people who do that aren't really particularly happy. So why do you think you are going to be any different? It's a little bit ridiculous. I'm giving you a compliment. Obviously depends on the situation. If we're going to take like a Yell situation, it's like, I don't even think people would feel the need to say that, because she already takes it as a compliment, or she doesn't mind it, and so she was not going to be like, wow, that's super offensive, and then they'd be like, well, geez, chill, I'm just giving you a compliment. It's like, that's not going to happen. If it's in the psyche situation, obviously that is kind of a gaslighting behavior. Maybe not necessarily. Maybe it's just an explanation of their point of view, where they say, I want to see your recoil, and then they say, no, I'm not an object, and I'm not going to do something as undignified as to get attention that I can potentially monetize in order to sexually gratify you and other people who want to be gratified by me and my body. My body is not something that I necessarily control the shape of, and it's just like, well, I'm giving you a compliment. It's like, well, right, you're giving me a compliment on something that I don't control. My parents didn't control it. Their parents didn't control it. It just kind of happened. The only way that they controlled it is if they actually tried to do designer genes or something like that, or if they did artificial selection, being like, well, I do think you're hot, but I also don't think that your features are going to be as evolutionarily great or something like that. I don't even know, but it's like, if it's a compliment, then it's probably about something that they actually did, or something that they, that actually speaks to character of who they are, not what they are or what they have. So it's just like, I'm giving you a compliment. You, when it comes to your behavior, are very entertaining. That's a compliment. You, when it comes, you appear to be very witty, and I appreciate your whatever. But it's like, that's a compliment. Just saying, nice rack, show me the recoil, is like, it's not necessarily a compliment in the same way, especially when it's not really it's not really the time or place, and this is the big thing. I remember Ziggy, I forget his name, but Ziggy, he would always refer to his wife as the redhead, which is kind of funny, but he would always say, the first time that I saw the redhead, I just totally fell in love. I wanted to be loving on her. I wanted to be kissing her. I wanted to be hugging her. But I knew if I did that in that very moment, then that would be skipping way too many steps. You have to not skip steps. And there's a step in order to attain each goal. I think a lot of men need to hear men who can talk about that, where it's just like, hey, if you do that, you skipped too many steps, because it's okay to feel that way. And it's okay to do that only if you've actually checked enough of the boxes along the way to be able to have all of those steps checked off, so that it's actually appropriate to do that. Because if you want to be kissing and hugging on someone, that's actually someone you should be in a relationship with, not a stranger who just looked attractive. So it's like, if you want to say, if you want to acknowledge that the body that they've got is real nice, you should probably be in the predicament to be able to say something like that. If this is a woman who either is undignified, or just, that's something that doesn't really bother her, and she's going to accept it as a compliment, you have to be able to read the room. You have to be able to understand. It's like, if I tell her that she's got a nice rack, is she actually going to think that's a nice thing, or is she going to think that that's not so nice a thing? And all you have to do is you have to observe her behavior, and especially if it's somebody you know nothing about, you probably shouldn't say something like that. Otherwise, you're going to have some consequences in that. I think a lot of the reason why people say a lot of these things is because there has been no consequence for it, because social media is largely of very little consequence. So people think it's perfectly fine to say, well, I just wanted to see the recoil. I just wanted to say you had a nice rack because I'm giving you a compliment. It's like, well, you have to actually know your place in that. And if the only reason that you should be saying something that is offensive is if you have to pick your battles well, both in a relationship and outside of a relationship. If you know that something is going to be offensive, and you should actually assess whether or not the thing that you say is going to be objectionable by them in a rational or an emotional sense, you should be assessing whether or not they're going to take offense to what you are saying. And then you also have to assess whether or not it's actually worth hurting their feelings in the first place. Because if somebody's totally in the wrong and stating the facts about the situation is probably going to be objectionable to them, then it doesn't really matter, because what is going to happen when you say that? What is the cause and effect of your behavior in this situation? If you say to somebody, this is fatherless behavior, you're behaving in a way that is undignified, and you're not going to be happy if you continue to live this way. If they get offended at you, then you haven't necessarily said something wrong. And, it should all be understood that just because somebody feels that way doesn't necessarily mean that they also think that you shouldn't be allowed to behave in the way that you behave. It's just like, I don't think personally, I think that there is a way to, in a non, what's the word? You can, without being exploitative, perhaps run a brothel or something, a business where, prostitutes, be they women or men, sell their body for a certain amount of time to clients, and that can be something that you can do without actually there being sort of extortion or whatever it may be. But I don't think that that is a good thing. Just because I don't think people should do it doesn't think I think they should not be able to do it. I don't think that it's... I think with heavy regulation, perhaps, there should be able to be perhaps openings for that. But I think part of the reason why our society, specifically in American society, hasn't done things that way is because there hasn't been a need for it, because people actually saw that behavior as undignified and it's not going to make me happy, so why in the world would I do it? And then the people who don't think that that's the case, or think that that's the only thing that they can turn to, what's the song? Bastille covered it. What would you do if you... Yeah, it's literally called What Would You Do by City High. It's just like, go, you ain't the only one to have a baby. That's no excuse for living all crazy. It's like, just because you are in your situation doesn't mean this is the last place that you could turn to or should turn to. There's always going to be somebody out there who, sort of an emotional capitalism, I suppose. There's a market for you getting things out of people who want to actually help you because they do take compassion on you. It's like, you can find people who care about you. Good place to go is obviously the religious community. If you say, I got a baby, I'm all alone, I don't have a job, and I don't think that I have any skills that I can take into the job market that can actually make it possible for me to be able to pay for myself and to continue on, can anybody help me? And you don't even necessarily have to ask for help. Like, literally, if you show up, and then the natural consequences of you being you struggling is going to show, and then people take compassion on you, like, hey, what's going on, are you okay? And it's just like, yeah, I'm actually not okay. It's like, it's not the only thing that if you tell yourself the only thing that you can do is to sell your own body for profit, then I think you've given up on any of your other options. But it's not to say it's like, well, what if I just enjoy sex work? It's just like, I don't know. It's just like, is it my place to say you shouldn't be able to? I don't think so. Is it my place to say you probably shouldn't if you want to be happy? It's like, yeah, that's my speculation. But if you truly think you're going to be happy doing that, then who am I to deny you? But it's just nonsense. This is why I'll never have a daughter. That's a very packed statement. That's a loaded statement, to be sure. It's like, why are they saying that they'll never have a daughter? Well, they're saying this is why, and this is somebody behaving in a way that is perceived to be undignified. And it's like, well, let's take the Yells situation. It's like, oh, this is why I'll never have a daughter. It's just like, why? Because like, you would have to like try to protect her emotional state from her behavior, even though kind of to do so is a little bit wrong, because you're trying to say, well, acts but no accountability, rights but no responsibility. It's like, that's not necessarily a good thing. Or like, I don't know, what is the idea of it, where it's like you would feel ashamed because your daughter behaves in a way that is undignified. You know, I would say to that person that you should probably get a grip, because if your entire self-worth is based on the way that your adult child has decided to direct themselves, then you're probably putting too much emotional stock in something that you cannot control. Maybe if you raised them better, then they would behave in a way that was dignified. Maybe if you filled in a little bit more spots in their brain, if you wired their brain correctly as a parent, then maybe they would behave in a way that was undignified, and then you could actually be proud of them. But, obviously you shouldn't stop loving your child, despite... you should love your child despite their behavior. If you don't, then I can't necessarily say that you're in the right emotional position to be a parent. But if you are also saying I can't be proud of you and therefore I'm going to be ashamed of you, then it's just like, well, eventually they are responsible for themselves, and they are actively using their reason to justify doing something that is not good. And if they are not successful in having a good life due to those actions, then that's on them. It's like, what more can you do at this point in particular? Maybe you can go back and in retrospect say, well, I suppose I should have behaved in this way, and maybe if I said this to them, maybe if I did this with them more often, maybe if I just spent more time, then I would be able to teach them better, through example or otherwise. It's like that's a much better way of going about it. But this statement in and of itself, in both contexts, it's like, well, I don't know why you object to this situation. It's just like, you'll never have a daughter because this person is showing their body in this way, or because their body looks this way. Like, I don't really quite understand it. If you go to the extreme and say, the dad has an OnlyFans daughter, and she's an adult, obviously, because you can't be underage and doing an OnlyFans. It's like, dad has an OnlyFans daughter and says, oh, maybe I shouldn't even, he's kind of feeling ashamed of her. Then it's like, I guess that's sort of the angle that I already took, but it's like, yeah, it's just too loaded of a situation, that it's just like, this comment kind of has the same flaw. That's weird. Why is that blocked off like that? It's because the video is full screen, but the rest isn't. That's weird. But it's like, this comment has the same issue as the there we go. So that would actually fix it. There we go. This comment has the same issue as this entire piece as a whole, because it's just way too vague of a statement of a situation, where it's just like, well, I just don't understand exactly why you are so ingrained in your perception that you can't actually unstick your boots from the mud that you've placed them in, and you can't walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. It's just like, you have no idea how to communicate this to somebody who isn't already in the mud with you. It's like, explain why you're feeling the way you're feeling, so that it makes sense to other people. Like this, it's really not that difficult. I already went they looked at me first. I mean, it's a joke. You say that in a Yells comment, it's fine. You say that in a Psyche's situation, it's just like, you're making excuses for your own bad behavior, versus the behavior in the first place isn't really all that objectionable, if it's done so in a way that isn't actually, it's not actually objectionable in the first place. So it's like, it's fine to kind of jokingly say something like that, because you're not actually trying to justify bad behavior. I know your DMs are crazy. That's what that literally is a statement of, I know people must find you attractive, and therefore people see the need, or are more motivated to want to reach out to you, because they want to get to know you, want to see if they can get interaction from you. I think a big flaw about this that is very intrinsic is that our society, specifically on social media, has gotten so utterly what's the word? What's the word? Goodness sake. Social. It's when somebody thinks that you're their friend, even though you have never met them and you will never meet them, and you're just like a celebrity who says things online, but they think that they know you you know them personally. Oh goodness sake, what the heck is the word for that? That's gonna bother me like so intensely all day. It's like this assumption that you know, there's this sort of like, you know, I can get to know you because I know you. It's like, well, okay, but I don't know you. It's like, this is a one-way relationship here. I provide you content. I provide you some stuff to you know, my own perspective. I provide you entertainment in some way or another, and because you have started to get to know me over time, because you've spent this many hours watching my videos or whatever, you therefore think that you know me, even though that I don't know you. It's just like, well, you may know the way that I behave, you may understand like your perception of the way that I am, and maybe you would be able to actually have a good conversation with me if you ever sat down, and maybe that would actually be able to go somewhere, but it actually isn't the other way around. Why is my brain thinking like codependency? That's not the stupid term. Psycho, whatever the crap it is. It's just like, you know, if somebody is DMing somebody in an attempt to get interaction with them, that is, you know, it's like she's not gonna F you type of a deal. It's like do you really think that you can actually like start a relationship with somebody? And I think everybody sort of has that situation where they kind of imagine themselves like, oh, what would I say if I were on the show? What would I do? Like, how about another joke, Murray type of a deal? But it's just like, you know, you have to be realistic about these things, and DMing somebody who's famous, like, is not necessarily a very mentally healthy thing to do, because like, you kind of, by doing that, are expecting some kind of a response. It's like you have to make sure that you go into that type of situation not really expecting anything back. So it's kind of like funny. It's like, oh, I know your DMs are crazy. It's just like, yeah, but do people actually end up like sleeping with fans in this sense? And, you know, even if they do, is that actually right? Because I wouldn't say it's right. There's a clear power imbalance there where you're actually weaponizing this dependence that they have on you. This emotional attachment that they have on you that you don't have on them, and that creates certainly a harmful situation for them with that power imbalance, where you can just end up like using them, and they'll still kind of make excuses for you and whatnot because they think they know you, but you don't know them. It's like it's important on kind of either end to recognize that. What is this stupid word? Oh, this is gonna bother the heck out of me. I hate this. The hell is it? Parasocial relationship. Why in the world was that so difficult to figure out? The you know, parasocial idea with this, where it's like people just, you know, there's sort of an egoism with it, where it's just like, if I DM her, then it's like, I'm going to be able to win her over and stuff. But then, like, you know, the parasocial nature of it, where it's just like, I'm super sad that this person disagrees with me on politics, or I'm so super sad that this person said something that I thought was offensive. It's just like, you know, if it feels like your dad is like yelling at your mom, then, unless it's your dad and your mom, then you probably should be a little bit emotionally detached from that situation. It's just like, wow, I can't believe that this person was this way. It's just like, no, that's parasocial. I think it's a phenomenon that has arisen out of the situation that we're in, being more intense than it's ever been, more intimate than it's ever been. And this intimacy, especially in a sexual nature, where people think that, like, you know, because somebody is like naked online, that they're doing it for them and that they actually understand their perspective, is like, it's really damaging. I think it's degrading to both sides. It's like both of these people are not benefiting from this situation in a way that is healthy. It's like, well, one of them is paying and getting gratification, and the other one is getting paid and receiving attention that can be gratifying. But it's like both of you are doing something that if you continue doing it, is probably not going to make you very happy in the end. You got the right to, but I think you should probably think a little bit harder about it. But that kind of comes back to this one, which I don't know if I like directly responded to that one yet. I was kind of saving it for last. But it's like, imagine showing your body on the internet. It's just like, yeah, yep, it's an undignified thing to do. If you're doing it for attention, if you're doing it for money, if you're doing it for, even just, like the purported idea here is a myth and a fallacy. The idea that it's just like, I'm just harmlessly being comfortable in my skin and enjoying the clothes on my body. It's just like, if the context of that is that I'm wearing, practically just underwear, like a bikini or something, on social media, and like a hot tub or whatever the heck, then and the idea is just like, imagine showing your body on the internet, and it's just like, yeah, it's an undignified thing to do, and it's just like, I don't necessarily think that there has to be somebody making you feel ashamed for that, in a sense where, I don't know, I think there's obviously some middle ground on it, but there comes to be a certain point where you have to expect that is the way that people are going to behave. It's like, I have seen somebody who had a full-on meltdown on Twitter, because it was just like, why do I get DMs of people like saying all of these things about my body, like, screw you, and it's just like, you show your body online, you don't show your face, you show your body. You don't, like, it's like, why does this not compute? You are putting out the energy that's just like, look at me, I'm a sexual object, and then people start to treat you like a sexual object, and they request for you to objectify yourself in ways you haven't done before, and it's just like, how did you not realize that boundary wasn't there? It's like, that's not where I drew the line. It's just like, you didn't actually draw that line before. It's like, this is not something that you can have at the same time, where it's just like, if you are literally showing your body on the internet, you are showing, it's like, are you showing the clothes on your body, or are you showing your body? Because, you kind of can't have both. You kind of can't expect people to say, hey, look at the body that you're showing, when you are literally out there showing your body. It's like, why is there a disconnect here? Like, why can't people just take it in stride that it's just like, yep, I objectify myself, and I'm doing it for money, I'm doing it for validation or attention, or I'm just, I do it because I enjoy it, and people respond in a certain way, and it doesn't really bother me all that much, because there are some things that I kind of enjoy, there are some things that I'd rather people didn't say things like that, but I can just move on with my day. But making it so dependent on, it's just like, oh, this evil guy who's saying these things, is just like, hey, maybe if you were a normal person, then you wouldn't like melt down about this, about, oh, these people say all these things, I have to like throw it all together into some like amorphous creature that I invented in my brain, just to validate my perspective and other people who share my perspective on this topic. It's just like, yeah, so if somebody behaves a certain way, there are going to be consequences to behaving that way. And if you don't want people to be a part of those consequences, then you shouldn't behave in a way that encourages people to behave in a certain way. Because those people's behavior, they're going to go wherever they are in order to behave in the poor way that they are going to behave. If somebody is going to behave in an undignified manner, by getting off to somebody sexualizing themselves, objectifying themselves, then they're going to go to the person who does that and, make comments about it. It's just like, if you don't want comments on your body, don't show it. Like, why is that such a difficult thing to understand? If you don't want attention on your body, don't show it. Maybe modesty would actually, stop getting that attention that you don't like. It's just like, if we're going to be perfectly egalitarian about this, then anybody who wants attention for their body, can show it. Anybody who doesn't want attention for their body shouldn't show it. From a utilitarian perspective, it's just like, if your goal is wanting attention, really good way to get attention on your body in particular is to show it. If you want attention, specifically from a massive group of, to the public, if you want attention, if you don't want a massive public attention on your body, your person, your character, you, whatever, if you don't want to be objectified, don't objectify yourself. If you don't want a ton of people to be looking at your body, don't show it. It's really that simple. And there's a difference between obviously having like a wardrobe malfunction of some kind, or a body that is difficult to actually cover up, and intentionally choosing clothing that is going to show things off. It's just like, maybe modesty is the best thing for you if you want people to actually care about you, or especially if you want somebody to romantically, individually care about you. And it's just like, if everybody wants attention on their body in some kind of a way, in a sort of a sexual, intimate manner, then that intimacy, if it's public, is going to be spread across all of the public. And if you really think that that's going to make you happy, that being intimate with tons of strangers is going to make you happy, like that one girl who had like a full-on like orgy gangbang for her birthday, which is insane. It's like, if you really think that that's going to make you happy, then you have to also understand that getting all of your all of that emotional connection is probably going to be spread across all of those people. Because and then these are all strangers, and they're not actually going to understand how you feel best about getting compliments on that. It's like, maybe private things should be kept private, and public things should be public. It's just like the outside toys go outside. You don't bring them inside because they're dirty. It's like the inside ones stay inside, because if you take them outside, they become dirty, and then they kind of become outside toys without you, unless you like wash them. It's just like, there's a time and place for everything. And if you want to have that time and place be completely public, and to take all of that to the forefront of everything, then you can't expect people to look at that and be sensitive, when this is something that maybe if you wanted sensitivity, then you should be doing it in an intimate sense that is also private. Like, if you want people to be sensitive about your emotional about your feelings on your body, then you shouldn't be showing it. It's like, it really is that simple. But life became dangerous the day we all became famous. Like, there's just such a massive fallacy with being just like, I'm just being comfortable in my skin and enjoying the clothes on my body. I said this when I was like 17, and I'll say it again. Body positivity does not equal whoring yourself out on the internet for views. It's like, if you are objectifying yourself, you might feel better about your body because other people see your body and be like, hey, that's pretty nice. But if you actually want somebody to care about you and not just see you as your body, then maybe you should not put yourself up on the pedestal like that. It's like, if you want somebody to care about you, maybe you should find somebody who cares about you and spend time with them and show your body to them. And then, they can actually help you be like, well, I actually like all of these parts about your body, because the reason why I, said hi to you was because I thought you were attractive in a personality sense, or in a whatever other sense. And I liked the body, or I grew to like it because I didn't notice it at first, or I, maybe thought that you weren't as attractive before, but now that I've gotten to know you, you've become like infinitely more attractive in my eyes. It's like, how in the world does that not seem like the best situation in comparison to having that entire emotional validation be at the whims of complete strangers in the public? Like, you really think you're going to be happier this way? But it's their fault for the way that they see it, and not your fault for actually letting them see it. it's like, what's up here? Like, it's so utterly fallacious. Body positivity is not just being like, hey, look at me in my underwear, I'm gonna post this to Snapchat. It's actually like assessing your body and being like, well, I don't like this, but I know somebody who does, and that person loves me. It's like I can get praise for this thing, because they appreciate it. Maybe I can actually appreciate it a little bit more. Like, this is one thing that tends to be an inextricably female need, though I think males kind of can stray into it a little bit more. They tend to be more private about this. Males tend not to desire, what's the word, physical, oh goodness sake, what is the word that I'm looking for? Validation from other people. It's like I don't need you to actually see me in this way or that way. I don't need to feel like everybody else like loves me. Like I don't know, what am I getting at? Like, if men have a problem with the way that they see themselves, they tend to internalize that, and only in very intimate situations will they actually say stuff like that. Whereas women, they feel it intensely enough that they, in order to really be happy, then they want actually somebody to hear what they're talking about. They want to be able to share that insecurity that they have, because it's like, hey, this is a problem that I've got. I want you to be able to understand, and then through understanding, the person they're communicating to can actually help them kind of deal with that struggle that they've got. Whereas men tend to want to struggle with what they've got on their own time, because it actually kind of hurts to say what they want to say. And in some senses, like, it's expressing yourself in an intimate way is sort of seen as what's the word? You're not much of a man if you do that, or whatever the idea is. It's just like, well, you're not a man if you actually like share your own feelings and stuff. And that's just a knee-jerk reaction, because like, well, I'm a man and I want to stay I want to stay private. It's just like, well, sometimes actually, if you share your feelings with somebody, especially if it involves your feelings for them, then it's more healthy for you in the end, because you can actually work through that with somebody else who can compassionately understand you. But you can get a million people in the replies saying, a million men in the reply saying, I love the female stomach, that I love the tummy, it looks very attractive to me, and there are still going to be women who are just like, I don't understand why you think that way. I just don't get it, because I kind of hate it, and the reason why I hate it is because I perceive it to be this way. And men are just like, no, I actually love that because it's very, very attractive to me for whatever reason. But it's just like having a man that actually demonstrates that to you, where it's just like, no, I love your body for what it is. There was I forget her full name, but it was like Madeline something. She would make these cool little images with like wise quotes on them and stuff to sort of demonstrate a point. I remember they were decorations in our house growing up, but there was one that said, if you don't like it, change it. If you can't change it, change the way you think about it. And that's one thing that, for the body is just like, well, if I don't like it, change it. What can I do to change it? Well, I can work out and I can do these things and I can get on like Ozempic or whatever. Ozempic. But it's like, well, I can't really change it, or there's only so much I can do at this point. I can't really change it much more without actually sacrificing my happiness in other ways, so that I'm like constantly working out or being on a diet, and I'm not going to be as happy. So it's like, well, I want to eat a little bit of food and still be healthy enough, but that is also going to result in a certain amount of body fat, and that, as a woman, that's a biological inevitability, that there's going to be more of a prioritization on body fat, because it's somewhat required. It serves multiple purposes. It's just like, hey, it's not like it's there for no reason. Like, understanding that there are some limitations, then understing it's just like, well, this is kind of where I draw the line. Now I'm going to kind of change the way I think about it. There's no no easier way, I think, to change the way you think about yourself than to do that with somebody else. To have somebody else there with you to feel your pain alongside you and to tell you that everything's going to be all right. And if you you throw that responsibility to the public, you're going to be disappointed, because the public is full of loads of different people who are raised in different ways and who have different contexts, and they don't know you, so they're not going to know your needs, and they're not necessarily going to care about you enough to tell you, to help you out in your needs. It's just like, what you actually need are close friends, an actual support system that doesn't involve just a completely uncontrolled variable of strangers. And that's exactly what this is they think that they can get this validation from other people. And just it's actually their fault for not actually understanding my needs and mind reading me and being able to respond in a way that is actually respectful of my needs and my emotional state. It's just like, that's first of all, it's too much to expect of people, in the sense that it's like, hey, you don't know these people, you're probably going to be disappointed. Don't put your faith in strangers, for goodness sake. It's just a bad idea. But also in the sense that it's just like, what gives you the right to put yourself on a public platform and then demand of everybody that they keep your emotional stability intact? It's like, actually, that's your responsibility. And if you're going to say that is anybody else's responsibility, you're just being pathetic. It's like, oh, it's your fault that I'm sad right now. It's just like, no, it's my fault for it's actually your fault for focusing on the things that do not actually make you happy. It's like, if you want to focus on the things that make you happy, why are you looking in the comments for that one comment that pisses you off? And the reason is because dopamine. It's just like, I was really satisfying to look at a comment here and be like, oh, that pisses me off, this is why this is wrong, type of a deal. Obviously, I've spent a significant amount of my time on this show doing that. But it's like, it is your responsibility to be emotionally stable. If other people say things that are unsavory, then that's obviously on them. But just because they say unsavory things doesn't necessarily mean that what you did was not actually disproportionate to the response that was given. Or I suppose other way around. It doesn't mean that their response was necessarily disproportionate to what you did. If what you did was objectify yourself, then you are communicating that you are perfectly fine with being objectified. And then if other people objectify you in a way that kind of makes it about them, where it's just like, well, I love your body, and therefore you should, show it jiggling or whatever, then it's like, oh, that's just so objectifying. It's just like, you already did that. You completely lose the high ground to be able to say that's unjustified, because it's completely proportional. If you don't want people to react in that way, then you shouldn't show that to people. And obviously there's room for mistakes in this. It's just like there are some people who are not going to realize that is the response that they're going to be getting, and maybe they need a little bit of natural guidance from people. But it's just like, people will see a situation like that and just, people are just so rude, and it's just like, are they though? Or are you just not doing as good of a job at mitigating the response to the situation? And it's like, if you are going to widen or like decrease the if you're going to sort of decrease the Overton window and tighten it, then saying something like asking for recoil or saying, hey, nice rack, is the exact same situation as it's literally raping somebody, then you're actually insane. And it's kind of an evil thing to do, to make a moral equivalency between those two things. It's like, one of these is extremely serious, the other one is somebody being a dick, contextually speaking, of course. It's like, actually know the difference, because if you cry wolf constantly, then eventually people are going to stop believing you. If you want people to believe you, then don't cry wolf all the time. Actually pick your battles. If something is worth fighting against and saying, yeah, I'm going to call you out for that, you're a dick, then do so. But if you actually have to have a rational, objective viewpoint, it's just like, hey, this is the way that the world actually works. It's like you have to take it from that perspective, and if you can't do that, then it's like I don't know, have fun just sort of suffering with the situation that you're in. It's like you're not going to be able to be healthy. It's just silly. Like, I suppose the sort of idea with it is, what is it? Like, when I said, goodness sake, it's parasocial in the sense that, somebody is asking somebody else for personal validation, where it's just like, hey, I don't know you, but you should know me, type of a deal. Or it's like, I know you, but you don't know me, but I'm going to expect you to know me. Like, that's parasocial. But I think it's also parasocial to expect people who are complete strangers to, like, respect your emotional state. It's just like, hey, I don't know you. Stop being, like, parasocial to me. It's just like, I'm just a random commenter, and you, like, showed your titties randomly. It's just like, what do you expect people to say? And it's just like, oh, look at this righteous indignation that she has. It's like, this is all just nonsense. And it's just like, to say that, of course, to be that being harmless in the grand scheme of things, it's just like, is it completely harmless to everybody to be naked and just on social media to objectify themselves? It's just like, well, I don't think that necessarily is harmless, because in many senses it legitimizes to men that it's okay to be objectifying, because these women are signaling that they are objectifying themselves and therefore are okay with being objectified. I don't think that that's harmless. I do not think that that is harmless, because then other men are just going to be like, okay, she wants to be objectified, I'll objectify her. And then women look at that situation and they're like, oh, well, that's horrible that someone would say this. It raises the temperature, as I said, on this topic, so that all sorts of people are going to think that behavior that previously was not acceptable is now acceptable, because you are going to be attacking disgusting behavior, or just somebody being an arsehole, which is just a different scale of it, to be the exact same thing in kind to being just completely reasonable and principled, and understanding that there is every action has an equal opposite reaction. It's like, you can't just expect that everything goes your way ever, and especially if you behave in a way that is not, it's the definition of insanity. It's like you can't just do the exact same thing over and over again and expect people to just suddenly come around. Many of these people, they want the world to change for them. The world should never change for you. You should change for the betterment of yourself. Not necessarily for the world, because, like, they don't owe you anything, and at the same time, screw them, because the world at large is not really that great. People at large are not really that great. It's like, you shouldn't change for anybody who isn't willing to change for you, in an interpersonal sense. But you shouldn't change. You shouldn't try to point to the entire world and say everybody should change for me. You should, if you weren't being like a parasocial idiot, then maybe you would see other people saying things with which you disagree. You look at that and you're like, I disagree with that. And, you can say that you disagree with it. But if you disagree with something, you can just explain why you disagree with it. If you find something to be unsavory, you can explain why you find it to be unsavory. But you can't do that out of context. And that obviously is the biggest issue here, is it's completely untextual. It's completely devoid of context, and it's just like, well, I don't know if you just want to bitch about things or if you actually want solutions. Because hey, if you want to complain about things, I'm perfectly willing to hear you out. But if you actually want solutions, let's talk about it. You know, complaining, I really don't like objectification of women. It really bothers me. Or I just don't like objectification of people because it's dehumanizing and it's wrong. Okay, yeah, I understand that. You know, I can understand when you hear somebody say something like that in a certain context, then it can feel a little bit demoralizing, and you don't really, you know, you're not supposed to just like enjoy that, you know. It's hard to expect somebody to just be like, hey, that's peachy keen, you know. But solutions, let's talk about solutions. Do people have the right to say everything? Well, obviously we're going to agree that people have the right to say whatever they want, and if you don't, then what are you doing in America? If you don't, then I don't know. But you know, it's like when it comes to actual solutions, people have the right to say what they want to say. But is there situations where those things are unsavory? Absolutely. There are situations where that's actually not proportional. It's kind of uncalled for. And you know, how do you call out those people? Well, you look at the actual situations instead of just saying, I just kind of hate this feeling that I get when something kind of like this happens. It's just like, hey, be specific, Bob. Like, if you want to complain about something, don't just assume that I'm going to mind read you on what you think the solution is. And it's just like, all that was showing was just like, she's angry and she's just righteously indignant because she was just having a fun time showing her body, or wearing her clothes, being comfortable in her skin, whatever the stupid nonsense like deflection is. Just like, it's not showing the body, it's feeling, it's just like, whatever, like, give me some context, but I'm going to assume that that's actually what you meant, is being scantily clad on the internet, or in real life, whatever it may be. And it's just like, hey, if you don't want people looking at it, then you can't do it. And if you want to expect people to not make those comments, like literally, if women and men alike all decided that they were going to be modest, then it would be hard for men who do say unsavory things to be able to, you know, say those things without any, like, people would look at them sideways. It's just like, I'm wearing clothing and I didn't decide to have my breast this big. Like, chill out. Like, I do not exist as a sexual object for your pleasure. Like, the only pleasure that you can get out of me as a sexual object is consensual, and I did not consent to you verbalizing your attraction in a carnal sense towards me. It's just like, no thanks. You know, people are going to look at you sideways if you behave in that way, when that is the accepted behavior. But when the accepted behavior is, I can just do anything I want, and we should actually attempt to remove any sort of natural consequence from existence, then it's like, well, this is a fool's errand. The plane of existence that you reside on has a natural natural is based on a natural system of cause to effect. And if you don't want the effect, you shouldn't give cause to it. Like, simple as. And actually, if we all could just agree on that, then we wouldn't see this being an issue whatsoever. That's actually the solution to it. But, you know, you can hop on all you want. You can complain all you want about, well, women should be able to do things, or men, or whoever should be able to do things. People should be able to show off their body in whatever way that they see fit, without other people, you know, vocalizing their attraction towards their body. It's just like, people are going to say things regardless. If you don't like what they say, then consider what you did to attract that, or consider what other people did to attract that. One quick thing before I finish this one off. I was looking earlier, and I wouldn't even have thought about it before. I probably would have like focused more about what was actually being spoken on in the video, but it was just on my mind at this point because I'd just seen this. I saw a video where it was basically sort of your like I don't know, goth mommy archetype. She was like tatted and whatnot, and she was running on a treadmill in a gym. And it was just like, you know, when you're working out at the gym and you're listening to like spicy audio, and it was like she was listening to her own audio of herself, like doing the like mommy boss, you know, like dominates you, or some rubbish like that. It was her own narration, and she was listening to her own narration as sort of a thing. It's like, this is when you're listening to this type of a thing. It's like she was wearing, like, I don't even know what she was necessarily wearing. I don't think it was just like a sports bra, but it was like clearly something that it's meant to keep the breasticles intact, but it's like there's a lot of side boob, there's a lot of cleavage that's being shown. It's just like, it's clearly there, and she's running. It's like there's gonna be movement there, and she's also listening to sexually charged audio of her voice. And I'm just like, if one of those comments that was made in this AZ Hero thing, where it's just like, I don't know, something that was interpreted as like objectifying, if one of those comments was made on this video, would someone be mad about that? It's like, people on Twitter or Reddit or wherever, like, end up seeing people post in a sexual manner about things, and then people end up kind of almost using it as like a way to solicit people for sex, where it's just like, I'll be your mommy, or whatever I don't know, whatever in the world that is. But it's like, like I think I've seen that sometimes, like on Reddit, where people will just like downvote other people, and it's just like, well, this is in response to OP in and of themselves asking a question in the post that they said. It's just like, hey, does somebody want to objectify me in this way? And then other people objectify them in the comments, and they see downvotes on it. But then OP replies me just like, oh yeah, baby. Like, it's just like, is there somebody you forgot to ask? It's just like, I consent, I don't. It's just like, if somebody is going out there actively showing this amount of their bodies, it's just like, I wouldn't have even been thinking about it, because it's like, oh, she's talking about this thing, and she's, going about that. But it's just like, I wonder if one of those comments if they were to show up in the comments there, then like, would people suddenly get super offended about it? It's just like, well, she's showing her cleavage, she's listening to a sexual audio. This is a very sexually charged situation. Like, the entire point is like, oh, I'm kind of embarrassed in the gym and being like, oh shoot, I'm trying to exercise, but I'm also like hearing the spicy audio, like this rubbish, where it's just like, I don't necessarily have an issue with somebody doing that. It's like, yeah, I think you should be able to do that all you want. If people want to hear those audios and get off to the audios, or, if people think that the videos are funny, or, if she kind of enjoys the attention that she gets from sort of showing her body in that situation, it's just like, hey, no harm, no foul, right? But you can't expect people to just like magically not like notice. You can't expect people to just magically be like, well, what are her emotional needs in this situation? It's just like, she's given you no indication that she is going to be angry about that. Whereas, and that's sort of where it's right and where it's wrong. If somebody constantly makes jokes about like, I got my mommy milkers or whatever, and pokes fun at herself for that, then it's just like, you're going to end up making those jokes as well, because you're saying, hey, look, I've read the room, and I'm going to make those jokes. And if anybody gets mad at it, it's just like, well, you kind of have to get mad at her too, because she kind of is feeding into it on purpose and benefiting from it on purpose, and she's okay with it. It's like, shut up. Why are you trying to rain on everybody's parade, in a sense? I would say from a sort of a moral perspective, sort of more of a conservative perspective, where it's like there are cultural norms that I think are very beneficial, that if we erode all of those cultural norms, entirely for the sake of freedom, that you're going to kind of end up with a lot of harm being done in that sort of a situation. It's like, yeah, but, you're free to do that, but you're also not free from the consequences thereof. And some of those consequences is that men end up getting turned into objects of their own volition, and men end up getting turned into animals of their own volition. It's just like, hey, if you don't want to be an object, and if you don't want to be an animal, then you should behave like a human being, and you should behave like a human being. Use your reason, be dignified, and stop like encouraging this to happen. If people are okay with being a gooner, if people are okay with gooning, and people are okay with being just like animalistic, then okay. It's like, understand what comes with that. Can't necessarily be disappointed. And especially if you look at like, oh, this is the consequence that I've run into. Guess that's going to be the way that it is. Clearly, maybe I probably shouldn't have done all that, but nothing I can do about it now other than try to move on. regardless of my past. It's just like it's like that's actually the mature way to look at it. But then, completely removing any responsibility of your own, and abdicating that towards just complete and utter strangers. It's like, no, there's consequences, and the strangers are going to behave the way that strangers that they see fit to behave. And if you give them no reason, it's like, I'm going to like hype up the dog like crazy. Like Bill Burr has a good bit on this, where it's like, I'm going to hype up the dog like crazy, and then I'm going to go take the dog for a walk and then get mad at the dog when it tries to like, when it freaks out another random pedestrian. It's just like, you're going to maul that kid. It's just like, well, you hyped up the dog. It's like, I feel like genuinely, and this might sound like very sort of sexist or misandrous. I think genuinely, if women treated men like dogs, then both men and women would be happier, because women would see, well, he's clearly misbehaving. So what I should do is I should punish that misbehavior. I should make it very clear to him that I don't appreciate that misbehavior and that he should behave better. And maybe I should incentivize him to behave better as well. Negative disenforcement and then positive reinforcement. Reinforce good things and disincentivize bad things, and then all of a sudden you're going to see men actually behave better, because they're going to learn. They're going to catch on pretty quick. That's just like, hey, I don't appreciate it when you do that. But if you show that you appreciate it when everybody in the public objectifies you, then you really can't have any sort of a surprised Pikachu face at everybody when people start to objectify you as well. It's just like, let's actually make it make sense. Like, what are you talking about? I think that pretty much does it for today. Gonna play some Hollow Knight. So I'm gonna first of all fill my water up, because I've been absolutely parched like this entire time, and then we'll go from there.